What's the difference between having followers and building a community? I'm here with Braden, and I'm going to tell you he has a superpower that he probably doesn't even know he has. He is an excellent community builder. And I've been watching him over the last few years go from his own photography business to a partner in static marketing to owning a company called Curated Collective. And his journey has been really quite remarkable. One of the things that's impressed me the most, last week he sent me a message, invited me to an event. I show up to the event the next day. He has hundreds of people there. That's an impressive superpower, especially when people talk about the importance of building community in the AI era. Now, you know that I believe trust is the de facto currency of the world. And obviously, you've been able to cultivate a lot of it. So you're doing something right. Actually, I think you're doing a lot of things right. But I'm excited to have you on the show today. And I think that there's a lot that people can learn from you and your journey.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. So I typically like to start with the personal aspect of you, right? It takes a very unique, strong, cultivated man to do the things that you're doing right now. So would you mind telling us a little bit about your background and where you're from, what you do?
Yeah. So, I mean, we can go pretty far back, but we'll do the summarized version. The what does they call, abridged version of it?
Sure.
Our Spark Notes. Grew up in Utah most of my life. In fact, moved out to Harriman from Sandy like 26 years ago. And I mean, we're pretty much your average family. Dad was a mechanic, stay-at-home mom, grew up just loving cars. You know, I always was tinkering with things, very curious by nature. And that carried on through my teenage years and has never stopped then. And it's kind of what led me into opening my mind up to new opportunities, which eventually brought into this entrepreneur type career. And yeah, it's been really exciting. So, you know, that's kind of like the really summarized version, if that works.
Sure. So I guess my first question was going to be, how did you get into entrepreneurship?
Yeah. So it's kind of funny because it's like I knew I wanted to be in business at some level. I never really took the term like entrepreneur seriously. In fact, even when it started to kind of get like thrown around, I was like, I feel like this is a very loosely thrown around word.
It kind of is.
It is. It really is. And so, it's interesting. I've always done my own things, right? Like as a kid, I would go on the corner and sell my toys and lemonade or whatever I could, to try to bring in income. When we did family yard sales, I would make cookies with my mom to do it. Like I was always kind of just driven to, be self-sufficient, which ended up kind of leading into like, I guess what you would call like entrepreneur characteristics.
Sure.
So from the start of the journey, it was very early on, but in fact, it was kind of interesting. I grew up in a very traditional and old school household. So my mom and my dad were basically like, you're going to grow up, graduate high school, go do the college route, finish the degree. You're going to go work for somebody. Hopefully they got a good 401k or pension system, and then you'll retire and die. And that's kind of the first of that. And to be honest with you, like it never resonated well with me. But not only did it not resonate well, when I was actually going to college for to be actually a pilot, there was certain things I did not vibe with. In the midst of going to college, like I moved down here and I was just kind of young, going with the flow, just hanging out with friends, doing classes during the weekday and then working on the hours that I could do work. And I'm like, man, this is like awful. And I'm taking classes I don't care about. Things that didn't pertain anything to my degree at all. Like I'm never going to use biochemistry and flying planes. At least I hope I don't. And so I was just like, you know what? This seems like I'm spending a lot of time and a lot of money into something that, from an ROI standpoint, I wasn't receiving. And that's not even like a financial ROI. It was more of like a mental ROI, like, from my own standpoint of what I was learning, I didn't feel like it was going to apply. And so I'm putting countless amount of hours into it and I just didn't like it. Not saying that college is a bad system, but for me, it didn't connect the dots.
Yeah.
And actually kind of funny story. This is probably not great to tell, but I find it interesting. So in the midst of my college career, met my wife, and I was also doing sales in the midst of that. So I'm like year and a half into my degree, and I started doing sales, started making really good money, got married, and then switched to like SaaS. And so I was doing sales in the SaaS place, and I literally was making more in that time frame on top of chasing this entrepreneurial career of opening my photography business and some other avenues, to the point where I was like, I'm making what I would make 3 or 4 years into being a commercial pilot. And that at that point I would have been starting that career within the last couple of years. And so I still would have been making less than I was making at that time, even right now, if I followed down that path. And for me, I was just like, this was an eye opener. Now, granted, like being a pilot's a great career. I still would love to go fly, but my eyes were opened. I started doing a lot more car things, getting invited to a lot more car events, and just taking perspective from people who were doing much better than I was, and from people who were doing much worse than even I was at that time, and then trying to pick, what I could out and then apply it to my life, so I knew what not to do and what I wanted to do.
Definitely.
So yeah.
We have a very similar journey in a lot of ways, it feels like. I often say that the university taught me all the ways to be unsuccessful as an entrepreneur.
100%.
And here I am, almost complete with my doctorate now. But I've continued education for the love of learning, not necessarily for what it gave me early on. And it's helped me with the more advanced degrees, perhaps. But especially in my undergrad, they were telling me, I was trying to start a business at the time, and I was in a business management program. Don't use more than 5 hashtags when you post, and you need to only post once a day or you're going to overwhelm and burn out your audience, those kind of things, right? And especially back then, this was 2017, 2018. That was the peak of like Instagram's use all 30 hashtags algorithm. You're going to get more exposure. And like, they taught you all the ways to be maybe a good employee for a Fortune 500 company, not necessarily to have success in your career field. So I also felt the similar, like the ROI just wasn't there for me, especially early on in my education. Were there any experiences, and you kind of touched on photography. I'd like to maybe talk about that too, because that was really, from at least my perspective, what I saw, your first big entrepreneurial endeavor. Were there any experiences that kind of launched you into that?
Yeah, actually. So it's kind of interesting because it was never something I ever planned on doing. Like wholeheartedly, I always thought about finding or inventing a product, trying to solve a problem for people, because I'm always been curious by nature. I pulled apart a lot of the DVD players growing up and then put them back together, just understood how they work. And sorry, mom and dad, about that. But they still work great. So that's all that mattered. But with the photography stuff, there's the couple of events that took place where one is I was taking photos at the time, but purely as hobby. Like it was just on my phone, adding a few filters because I found it interesting. I found it very aesthetic, and I was like, this is cool. Like it's fun. And obviously it was something I could do to capture the moment when I was out doing like these different car events, rallies and meets. And, you'd see something like, you grew up here and I grew up here, and seeing just how the automotive scene here has developed is insane. Like the coolest car I saw growing up was at an auto show at the Southtown Expo Center, or Mount America Credit Union Expo, whatever it is, that building. And it was like a Ford GT. And then it would just be classic cars at car shows, which are cool. And I absolutely loved those cars. I still have a huge passion for them. But like, kind of that upper echelon that you'd see on the TV or movies or any of the video games we were playing, it's like we never saw that. And so to go to these shows, capture those moments, I was like, this is really cool. This is kind of leading up into the moment where I had a friend, his name is David, really great guy, was getting into being an automotive photographer, but like not just as a hobbyist like myself. He was actually doing it on a professional level, making money, charging people to do photo shoots, working with different companies. And I didn't ever connect the dots until we went up the canyon one day. He did a photo shoot in my car at the time and was like, oh yeah, after some conversation, I should say, the dots connected where I was like, you can do this and make money out of it. I was like, oh, so I can essentially identify like just something that I love to do. I can do this every day. It's in a space that I love, and like I can help solve a problem for people, and they're willing to pay me to do that. And so I was like, I gotta dive in. So I took my my mom's old camera that we had since like 2002 and just grabbed it and then went to work.
Dude, it's awesome. I really believe you can take your passion, whatever that is, right, and build a business and a career and a way to earn around that. And it looks different for different people in different places or perspectives. But I absolutely love that an entrepreneur's journey can start anywhere with any experience that you're passionate about. You're a little bit modest about the photography, but that's actually how I came to first know you and follow you, right, was in that car scene. I was probably one of the first, if not the first person to have like a GT3 RS in Utah and be open about driving it around. And I took it to all the cars and coffees and things like that. And honestly, that kind of launched my involvement in the car scene because I wasn't active in it before. I'm an enthusiast more than a motorhead or something like that. I enjoy the experiences that you get while you drive the vehicles. And so the more I got involved in that scene, you start becoming aware of, like, people start reaching out. Can we do a photo shoot? Can I shoot your car? I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking. Take pictures of a car? Okay. But as I started learning around that kind of world and space, I became familiar with your work and South Valley photography. And, one of the things that stood out to me about you and your craft was that you were very passionate about it, one, but two, you were always taking the time to get better at it. And so over the years, you kind of saw the evolution of the quality of the photos and the editing. And like, it was very obvious that as an entrepreneur, you wanted to be a master at what you did. And I think that that's probably carried on with you now into your other endeavors. So I think that's a really cool kind of segue here, because even though you're not doing photography necessarily the way you were, that's still a big aspect of who you are and what you do when it comes to your social media presence and the businesses that you're involved in. Mm-hmm. Were there any, I mean, you kind of shared one already with that experience, but any big aha moments that set you up for success as an entrepreneur, like maybe as you got started on your path?
I'll be honest. So I always find those questions interesting, because when I look back at it, I would say there's significant moments that I cherish because it was like, someone brought something to light. It didn't feel like an aha moment in that time, but like, I was like, oh, that kind of clicked with me at the time. And it was enough of a click for me to kind of go down the path. But even then, I'm very self-sufficient and, for better and worse, sometimes a little stubborn. So sometimes those moments take a little bit longer to click because I'm working through it and working past some of my own boundaries and personal barriers that I have set up mentally over the years because of the way I was raised, because of the way that I was taught. And, so I wouldn't say there was like one like specific aha moment. I think it was a accumulation of multiple moments of inspiration.
Definitely.
The thing, like, you mentioned, like with photography, like the evolution of how it's been over the years, right? There's certain aha moments that I think I had in like my editing process, as an example, that I came across by doing my own research, by looking at other people's styles, by reading books, doing online research. YouTube, obviously, that was a great platform, even though there was like nobody in the space. So I had to take other people's information who were doing things in like the product and retouching side and portrait side, and then try to apply it into the automotive space. So yes, there were multiple, I guess, moments of inspiration that kind of helped guide me down my path of why I'm here today, but I wouldn't say there was one aha moment. Yeah.
So you touched on something that I'm very passionate about, and it's the concept of continuous learning as a leader, as an entrepreneur, as an organizational driver. Continuous learning isn't just formal education, right? You mentioned you were on YouTube. You were looking into what people were doing in photography and other fields to try and learn from that to drive your field forward, right? We can innovate as entrepreneurs and not necessarily be creating something from scratch. You can take something that's good and apply it into your own realm. So I love that concept, but I love the concept of continuous learning and like always looking for a way that you can be better at what you do. I think that is a skill set that separates winners from losers when it comes to business.
100%. 100%. I feel like a lot of people, when they talk about like entrepreneurship or think about like, when they at least discuss business, whether they're aware of it or not, it's kind of interesting. I notice a lot of people talk about like, if I just get there, and it's like, well, define there. Like, what's that next level even? Like when we talk with businesses, even we're helping them develop their brand and grow online. It's like, well, I'm ready to take the next level. I'm like, well, what does that even mean? And they don't even know how to define it. And it's kind of interesting because a lot of people, I think, on the continuous education side, they think that you just get this point of what do the Buddhists call it? Enlightenment. Yeah, it's like this moment of enlightenment. They're like, I made it. This is it. This is I know and understand everything. And it's like, no, that's far from the truth. It's so far from the truth because the moment you start to catch up and really take on new techniques or strategies, a new technology comes out, this new tool comes out that automates everything you did.
Yeah.
And, so things become more efficient, but then you got to learn how to do that tool. And then does that tool actually help you accomplish it in the right way? And then it's always just working and learning.
Mm-hmm.
And I think anyone who thinks that you have to stop learning or stops learning you reach a point of stagnation that is just, I feel like, a really interesting path, especially if you're trying to take the entrepreneurship journey.
Definitely.
Because the moment you become complacent, you become in the past. Like you become old news, in my opinion.
Yeah. You touched on how AI is kind of innovating, but maybe separate from that, I've never, and I'm sure most people would agree, I've never run into a problem set in entrepreneurship or a business that couldn't be improved, right? So the concept of just knowing everything is so foreign to me because even if I get to a point where I'm doing really, really well in something, we're running really lean and efficient, I can look at it, I can assess the situation, I can still see ways to fine tune and improve. I don't think there's ever somewhere where you'll hit, a level where there's just no improvement to be made.
Oh, no.
It's just unrealistic.
It is. And I mean, so I worked in all forms, right? I've worked with startups. I've worked with, companies that have gone public. Like I worked in everywhere. And it's kind of funny because I've tried to always place myself in the right rooms to like be able to kind of take the knowledge, understanding, and the things that they're talking about, mostly to gain perspective. And it's been really cool, even in my career with being in some of the rooms I've had because of photography and the marketing side, just discussing with these different business owners what's going on in their company. And from the outside perspective, you're like, oh man, they're killing it. Like they're doing so well. They've got their processes dialed in, like everything's running great. And then you kind of peel back the curtain a little bit and you're like, oh, it's actually just a well-managed dumpster fire. Like it really is. And, everyone runs into constant roadblocks. And the moment you start to feel like something like you're always, I don't want to say putting out fires because there are good businesses and well-run businesses, but there's variables that you have no control over and that you have to overcome and adapt constantly.
Definitely.
And so when people think that it's just this kind of breeze past this like level of like quote unquote success, it's like, that's so far from the truth. It really is. And if you can't wrap your head around that, then it's probably not something you should pursue or still pursue it, but at least take that lesson back and understand that's what, anything in life, in my opinion, that's kind of how it is. And so, yeah, I don't know.
Something that I really like and that I think helps with that kind of situation is, having a really strong team around you, right? My whole, my premise is that if you want to have a $10 million business, you have to have a $10 million team, right? Teams are what help you scale effectively, efficiently, and put out those dumpster fires, like you're saying, or manage them so they never even get to that point.
Yeah.
I find a lot of entrepreneurs end up bottlenecking their business and their growth and their scalability because they're not willing to trust and develop a team around them to help them manage those kind of things. So I've been kind of watching, you, Static. I know a lot of people that are working with and around you guys. And I know that you're putting together a really good team there of solid individuals, trustworthy individuals that take pride in what they do. So that's kind of maybe my segue into tell us about Static a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So Static, we're essentially a marketing company and creative agency whose basis and foundation is around media. Right now, we're in a consumption world. We're in a consumption nation. Hence why the tariffs were such a hard hit on a lot of e-commerce businesses, which, yeah.
We're fighting through.
And it's a crazy climate, and there's some strategy behind it. Unfortunately, it hurts kind of us guys, who are, not government officials with a salary. But aside from any of the, government controversy behind that, we come in and we help build blue collar brands. We've worked in the automotive industry for a long time. We still entertain that side of the industry, but Static is a foundation of how we take people's businesses to that quote unquote like next level. We're a consumption nation and people consume media constantly. I mean, you can't even drive down the freeway. Even if you don't have a phone or any social media,
You're going to get hit with it.
you're going to
Digital billboards.
Yeah.
It's wild.
You are visually, unless you're stuck up, and even in the nature, like you are constantly collecting data in your brain of all the visual environment around you. And people understand that, marketing is just real estate. And how can I fill this real estate with my brand or company so you recognize it and want to potentially use me? That's it. Like at its core, that's it.
Jeez. No one's ever phrased that to me before. I love the concept. Marketing is real estate. It's mental real estate.
It is.
That is awesome and powerful. So I guess, don't just divulge your secrets here, but what is the, real impact, the power that you see with Static marketing helping these brands? From my perspective, right? I watch and I've never even heard of marketing agencies for construction companies before. But then I see, like Jeeves out on the work site, they're pouring concrete behind him or something like that. That's kind of a cool thing. It's something that I wasn't exposed to previously, that I wasn't aware with. But what kind of impact are you guys seeing with the brands that you represent?
It's pretty substantial, to be honest. Kind of going back to what I mentioned as far as like marketing being real estate. The thing that people forget often is if I'm not top of mind, I'm on the back burner, right? And for construction companies, a lot of these guys are very old school. So they work in, an avenue where it's 100% referral based. I have a relationship with you as a builder. I have a relationship with this individual, or I've done enough work for enough people over the years and grinded my way through that I have people constantly referring me. Oh, who did your basement? Who helped you guys with your electrician? To set up all of your guys' wiring for the house. Those types of things. And so these guys are very old school in the sense of they have just been working off referrals. We've come in and there's kind of a new wave of entrepreneurs and builders and, these blue collar guys who are just grinders, but also understand the impact of what social media and other forms of media can do for their business, that are starting to make it small ripples right now. Like even us, we're still very early on helping this industry, especially teaching this industry on what they need to do. But the impact is enormous because if you're a custom home builder, you're doing multiple different things. You're inspiring a younger generation. You're inspiring people, like for example, Corey Robinson, he's not one of our clients, but he's one of the guys that we've talked to before. And he's started to do this, especially on social media. Most people aren't going to be able to ever afford his homes. He's doing $3, $4, $5 million plus homes. Like these are insane, right? And maybe he does if you watch this, don't quote me. I don't know, but I think it's only like 3 or 4 homes a year. So the likelihood of you or me or some Joe Schmo off the street who's going to hire him is probably minimal. So you're like, why do you even need to market then? Well, what he's doing is he's creating brand awareness because you never know. What if my business takes off? I come into some money because of our business and I'm ready to build that next dream home. I might want to hire somebody like him, and likewise, it creates a presence among other subcontractors and other builders of the quality and what people can do and are capable of. You're inspiring a younger generation on maybe ideas that they want in their home. You know, like I'm very goal oriented. And so if I see that I can have a whole separate house, or like call it a wellness center, and a pool and a TV that comes out of the ground that I can watch while I'm sitting on my pool. Like that's pretty cool stuff. It's not the whole purpose that's going to drive me there, but it's stuff that I can go, that's exactly what I want. Like I want to be able to, you know, partake in those kind of things. And so as far as impact, it's fairly heavy because we're bringing exposure to brands to help not only generate new business, but create new relationships. Like, for example, one of the people we worked with last year, they didn't even care about getting new business, which is how a lot of people pitch. You know, hey, I'm a marketing company. Let me bring you all these business. I can bring you these leads. We're going to get you this much traction, followers, etc. This business we talked with is like, I just need high quality employees. He's like, and if my company doesn't represent high quality work, I'm only going to attract low quality people. He's like, I need to attract high quality people. And my work and how people perceive our company is going to bring that in. Because then if you're looking at the guy who does the most amazing work, it's pristine and stuff, you're like, well, I want to be a part of projects like that. If it's not presented in a light that emulates that narrative, it's going to be really hard to hire. And it already is hard to hire in this industry. And so even that kind of opened my eyes and perspectives. So we, at its core, we bring people in, we figure out what they want, and then we help them accomplish that goal. So
I really liked how you're taking an industry that has essentially been ran on referrals since time immemorial, and you've plugged in a way to like actually have sustainable lead generation, right? A lot of people don't realize YouTube, for example. YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world, right? Like you mentioned, people consume media. Media is real estate in your head. It's also perpetual lead generation. So I think something like that, I mean, you totally hit on that. It's not something I would have thought of before you said it, but your social media, your content development then as a marketing agency is lead generation into perpetuity, and not just for the construction companies and blue collar companies and workers that you're representing, but also for yourselves then. That's a pretty sick gig.
it's pretty sweet. It genuinely is. Like the thing that I love about what we do is reason why we even call ourselves not necessarily marketers, we're more just like brand strategists, because building a core brand and an audience that is engaging with you and is caring about you and your business, that is interested every time they pull up their phone, what project they got going on today, what's happening in their lives, and is really like dialed in to what you're doing as an individual or as a company. That's what creates a legacy behind that brand. And that's what's going to continue to bring you more business. And you're bringing like call it a cult following if you want, but a group of people that want to constantly engage with you. And that's way more powerful than the guy who just wants to, sell a couple things and then call it a day. Right. And it's cool because we're plugging into a very archaic, business mindset. Like, for example, there's a roofer who literally still to this day operates on a calendar on his wall and a journal next to his bed. That's how he schedules everything like that. But he does 450 roofs a year. But it's very archaic. It's very archaic. So we're able to plug in these new systems, keep that top of mind. And yeah, the impact for their business, again, goes beyond even probably the lifespan of what we've done with them, because what we're setting up as a foundation for their business, like if they can keep that consistent for years, like that, you're talking about Coca-Cola style brands that just have the name, you hear the name, you know it, you can resonate with it, you know what it's tied to. Yeah.
Well, and even if you think about that, if you optimize your content now, right? That content, once it's posted on the internet, it's not going away, right? You post a YouTube video, that'll be on there until you delete your YouTube video.
Yeah.
So and you think about YouTube as the search engine, then you have some really good content. It's posted forever. that thing is working for you. So I love that you're able to take that asset. You talked about community just barely touched on that. Okay, so that's, I think, like I set up in our hook at the beginning, that's a really awesome superpower that I see that you have. You're doing it with Curated Collective as well. So I mentioned last week, Braden invited me to an event. I go out there. I don't know how big it's going to be. I know the venue is relatively, small, doesn't have a big parking lot or anything like that. You probably had 200 to 300 people out there. One, I want to ask, how do you do that? That's freaking awesome. But also, I think you're doing something really cool with Curated Collective. So let's talk about both of those things real quick.
Sure.
Tell me about Curated Collective, why you're doing it, the purpose behind it. I love that it's limited edition drops. I'm sure you'll touch on that too, but I'm reminding you so you don't forget. I appreciate that. And then tell me about how you're able to build the community around there.
Yeah, so Curated Collective at its core is an automotive enthusiast like streetwear brand. That's pretty much it, like summed up. The cool part about what we do is a lot of like the automotive like brands and styles of streetwear that I've seen are so cheesy. It's always either like Fast and Furious related, or it's like motors, horsepower, like it's using like just these keywords that we all associate with cars.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I feel like this is just some guy who looked up common search word like keywords online.
What's the pop in SEO?
Yeah, what's the most popular car right now? And then I'm gonna throw whatever, and then it's just so cliche, and I hated it because like I'm not saying I'm good at fashion, but I wanted something that if I had in my closet, I'd be happy to wear at any occasion.
Yeah.
And so there wasn't really anything out there that I like genuinely loved. So initially it kind of started as that. It's also kind of the test subject for, I kind of mentioned a future brand that we're going to do the soft launch for here in July. But what I created around Curated was a very stylish, very like, I wouldn't call it futuristic, but forward thinking as part of design of streetwear that was affordable. And the kind of the cool key aspect that makes it fun is whatever car that we base that piece of clothing around, we only produce as many merchandise items as many of the car was manufactured. So, like for example, one of the first drops we ever did was a Ferrari F40, which I took pictures of. We turned into digital art, which also was kind of a part of the reason why we started is I wanted to do something better than just like taking photos. I wanted to implement it into like streetwear and art, make it really cool, that like next step of creative, of my creative endeavor. And anyway, it was a Ferrari F40. It had the, it's like plexiglass windows. I think they call it like Lexicon or something like that. Those kind of like plastic race style windows, very lightweight. Well, there was only 90 manufactured in the world that first year, which is actually kind of interesting because it was originally supposed to be glass, but they couldn't get the glass done in time. So we made 90 F40 shirts based off of this photo I took of this F40 and curated this whole design together, did a drop, did an event, and then sold out. And that's kind of how we based every car. So I usually like to take photos of that car, incorporate it, into some of the design aspects, and then we do the drop, and yeah, very limited. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
You mentioned, you did an event, you sold out. Obviously then you had 90 people or so more at the event. How do you build the community around that to get those people out of their homes to come to your events?
Yeah, I think it's
because it's not just followers, right? It's
no,
not just having people on social media and you say, hey, come to this thing. Obviously there's a connection, right? Like I come to your event because I'm like, okay, I know Braden is doing some really cool things. I want to see what he's doing. Like this dude is honestly inspirational. I'm sure you are to me and then obviously other people. So it's not just you have a good social media presence and following, right? You're building a sense of community and you're doing something to get these people to, one, have trust in you and what you're doing, but also to feel that sense of belonging around Curated Collective.
Yeah. The thing about communities, that I find interesting is it's not something you can build overnight.
Mhm.
People talk about virality. I've had viral posts myself. Like, we've had millions of views on videos. Like, I had a post where me and my wife took pictures with a supercharger and it went international.
Yeah, that was a really good one.
Yeah, that was a pretty good one. And at the time I was working sales and doing this career. And so it's kind of interesting. The thing I learned is when I was even selling, and this is kind of the precursor to it, just to provide some background. When I was doing sales, most of the time when people bought, I thought, at least in the beginning of my career, was because of the product. If I can present a really good product and it solves a problem, because that's how they taught us what business is.
Yeah.
Business is identifying a problem and providing a solution, that it would sell.
Mhm.
And I'm like, oh man, I was so far from the truth. It was so far from the truth. I couldn't wrap my hand around it because I was like, well, he taught me this is what business is and this is why people buy. But like, no, buying and the human psychology behind it is a totally different thing. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but why people buy is typically not even just because of the product. You have some products that are like that, like milk, great. But water, even, like, you've got Smart Water right here. That is proof that people don't buy because of what the product is. Like, yeah, I'm thirsty, but you know, if that was Aquafina and I present that to a couple of my friends, they'd be like, ew, no. It's like, but it's water.
And you're thirsty.
And exactly.
I'm solving your problem.
100%. So someone taught me early on in my sales career that facts tell, stories sell.
Yeah.
And that when I could tell a story that resonated with them, and typically even like build a relationship with them and build that rapport, they're buying the product because of the stories I told and because of me as an individual, not because necessarily the product. Like, yes, did the product still provide a solution? Absolutely. And so when we're building a community and kind of building this group, I realized that I need to just communicate with as many people as possible, build rapport with that, because people who I can meet and I have a relationship with, like, they're going to back me on anything I do for the most part, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, one of those, I guess, aha moments, going back to the question earlier, that helped me realize that is there's a big YouTuber here in Utah that I got introduced before he kind of even hit some of his bigger strides, the Stradman.
Mhm. Shout out to James.
Thanks, James. I got introduced to him through Clayton, and that was kind of like what confirmed everything that was learning and seeing around the world as far as like my experiences of people who just are endeared to you past like at a level that I didn't even think was possible. Like, literally, he could sign a napkin, throw it up on eBay, and people would pay for it. Now, objectively,
I'm trying to get there.
yeah, for real, yeah. Objectively, it's a napkin with a piece of Sharpie on it and ink.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if, you know, when everyone puts their head down, that's all it is. But because of who you are as an individual, because of what you do, the community, the inspiration that you've given people, that goes so much farther and so much deeper because it's a human connection which you cannot replicate. And so I realized then, okay, if I can build a community, create enough relationships with people, it's going to allow me to do the things I'm passionate about. But that's not the reason why I did it. I just realized the power of it.
Definitely.
Because the power goes so deep in it. And so to answer your question, as far as like what I did to build that community, I just spent years, like the last 10 years of my life, going to places, meeting people, having genuine and authentic interactions, conversations, you know, taking note of things that they're interested in, remembering little things that they mention in conversation, like, oh, you know, my sister just had a kid. And then the next time I see them, remembering, how's your sister's kid? Or, you know, details like that. And then just building the community. And then the other side of it too was being involved with people who are making impacts in the community and then associating myself with them. And not by just being like, I'm going to surround myself, I'm going to be at the dinner table where they're at. Like, no, providing value for those individuals.
Yeah.
Like that, because then now I'm associated with them. I'm providing them value. They want me around. And then now I can get plugged into even more people. And it just became this like domino effect. And this wasn't my mindset going into it. This is just me like verbalizing this kind of like reflection over the past years of what I've been doing. And anyway, if you can build a community where people genuinely care about you, I'd rather have 1,000 people who genuinely care about me and will go wherever I go than 100,000 people who just thought I was funny in one video who followed me because of that one video. And that's the distinction even in social media, which is a whole nother rabbit hole of a conversation we could discuss, that people I think get twisted because they see the big following, they see the number, and it's like, if that person dropped a product tomorrow or told people to come out to an event, would anybody come out? Probably not.
Yeah.
You might get a few, but like when you're talking about like Cars and Coffee is a perfect example. Me, Jeeves, and Todd have spent the last 5 years literally doing that exact thing, building relationships. We're not asking anything of people, getting the community in, having interactions with people, telling them thank you for coming out, doing all of that. And now we host one meet a month that brings out thousands of people.
Yeah, that's been really cool to see. Oh my gosh, dude, there's so much to unpack in that. And I know that I'm going to go back, I'm going to watch this video, and then I'm going to be like, I should have asked 20 more questions around that. The Cars and Coffee thing has been really cool to see. Not to derail maybe from the value, but I got my GT3 RS in 2019, and Cars and Coffee then was like 50 to 100 cars. And now it's like 800 to 1,000 plus cars, like just people, like that's not even people, that's cars coming out. And, a lot of those cars have 2-3 people in them. Some like I take my family out there. So I'm like, man, that's an event now that you guys have cultivated and generated the community around, where you have thousands of people showing up just to hang out.
Just to hang out in a parking lot. Like, it's crazy. I'll tell you what, it's been the most cool. I'm horrible with words, but if I'm being frank, it's been one of the most eye-opening things that we've done because, you got to realize we just did this because no one else was doing it. Everyone else was doing it on a Sunday. We just realized, let's do it on a Saturday. And let's just see where it goes.
It's Utah.
Yeah, we're trying to tailor it to the market, right? And, it just grew and grew and grew. And I mean, we always wanted it to be big because obviously that means that there's a lot of really cool cars and there's a lot of really cool people coming out. And if it wasn't for the community, none of it would be possible. But when you talk about community, we have done zero marketing. We have put zero amount of money into it. In fact, to be honest, the amount of effort that it takes to run a social page for it, it's a little bit, but like, it's not insane. Yeah. The last month, we've got 500,000 views, all organic, all authentic, and it shows in our meets. And so it's really cool. And I think the thing that a lot of people forget about, and this is a point that I do feel like is important to make, is I can say, yeah, it's our efforts. I can be like, we work so hard, tirelessly. We spend time meeting with landlords. We have to meet with police officers. If it's large enough, sometimes the city requires permits. We're working, all of these different inner workings, trying to get sponsors and booths out there to help cover our insurance costs and, correlating with food trucks. Like, it is an endeavor. And I could say it's because of those efforts that we get the people out. And it's like, no, it's because of the community and the interactions that we have within the community and the people we've met. Because, you talk to 1 or 2 or 3 people and they talk to 2 or 3 people and so on and so forth. They've got their group of friends that they want to bring out. Now it's their whole group. Their group has outside friends who've got other hobbies that fit in that niche that bring their friends. And you have to remember that it's the people around you that make it possible. And I feel like a lot of people end up forgetting about that and they just look inwards on themselves because it is hard work. But at the end of the day, if I can do all this hard work and if no one shows up, then what's it worth?
Yeah. There's a lot of trust that goes into those relationships. You mentioned something a minute ago. Sorry to go backwards a little.
That's great.
About, getting a seat at that dinner table with those people that are maybe operating at a higher level and how it's important to provide value. Getting a seat at that dinner table is probably not worth anything at all if you can't sustain the seat at the dinner table. You have to earn that spot, essentially.
Yeah.
So the value added piece is necessary. right? Your relationship is going to be based on trust. But what gets you in the door with that relationship is the value that you provide. So I think that we're maybe unpacking a little bit of your secret sauce on why or how you build the communities. It's that one, you're providing a value to people, and you're not even charging for that value, right? That community is value in and of itself. And then you're maintaining trust via the relationship that you build with the individual and the group. That's a really cool strategy. Did I hit that right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's actually kind of funny because it bleeds. What allowed me to realize the value of that was when I first moved down to Orem to go to U. I was starting off, in college. It's like I was taking some of these business classes and I was trying to get into some of my aviation classes, and I was just like, how cool would it be if I like sat down, someone saw how hard I was working, and then realized, oh, this guy's working hard. Here's this opportunity. Let me help come run this Fortune 500 company with me. Or here's all this money. Let me invest in this idea. And it was the dumbest idea because like literally I'm sitting in a McDonald's. It's 7:30 a.m. I'm finishing writing up a paper for my class at 11. Like no one's going to walk into a McDonald's and be like, hey, this guy looks like some serious
working hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was super dumb. And the mentality behind that was I figured if I just showed that I was a hard worker, that the opportunities would come to me. And it was actually kind of interesting. It took a few years to really recognize. And even now, I probably wouldn't say it's completely fully set in. But when I started creating opportunities for other individuals and just, opportunities in general, and I was even just doing things on my own endeavor, people at that level are attracted to other people because that's what they did.
Yeah.
And so if they see me going hard or grinding, I'm growing, I'm getting, working within people within their network and, doing something that's kind of cool, that's starting to make some waves, people catch on to that more than I think a lot of people realize. And then they want to start surrounding themselves around you.
Definitely.
And then that table becomes like, instead of a seat you have to fight for and be like, oh, like, how do I get invited to this? It's just like, oh, come here. Like,
great. So I have this mantra at my last house. I had a big chalkboard in the gym, and I just wrote it in huge print across the middle of the board. Nothing is given, everything is earned. Same concept here. And you're touching on this principle, but it's the free value, the principle of free value. When I was starting my entrepreneurial journey, I was like just soaking in as much content as I could from the big name entrepreneurs on social media. And Gary Vee, I think, was the guy that popularized this, but it was the concept of just go to work for free. And it's a mind-blowing thing for a lot of people. And you're like, I can't do that. I can't afford to go to work for free. But the catch is it's an investment. It's a long-term, the payout will come, but it's going to take a while. So if you can, like you said, you're providing opportunities for people, you're providing value to individuals, and then they see that value and they want to keep it around, all of a sudden you're in a position where opportunities will come to you from those around you that you've been providing value to because they know the worth.
Yeah.
They've experienced it, right? So it's almost like, you go to Costco, you get your free sample and you taste something and it's really good, so you buy it. It's the same concept, but applied at a much higher scale in your service and the quality and the effort and the value that you can provide people. So I absolutely love to hear that because you're doing that. I did that. I coach people now that are doing that. And the big names are talking about it. Obviously, that is a principle that works.
It is.
So yeah. I love to talk about that and share that. Just to kind of keep things. We've talked about static marketing. Mm-hmm. We've talked about Curated Collective. Those two businesses are totally different. As an entrepreneur, I struggle because I run a handful of businesses now. They're all in a different world. I get absolutely overwhelmed and scatterbrained and like my calendar is just freaking swamped with events. How do you manage working in two different worlds? And really it's three with the car meets.
Yeah, it's a bit. I mean, there's some bleed over, right? There's some gray area that they all share. Um, it's hard because a lot of people want to do multiple things at once in the early stages because they see the people who are at the top having multiple businesses, having their portfolio scattered across. And I think there's a time and a place for that. But if you're early on, even including myself, and I think I'm still very early on, it's about prioritization.
For sure.
Like you have to have your priorities straight. You have to have the direction of where you want to go. Like that path doesn't have to be defined, but you have to know that like when I'm working on that, that's the only thing I'm focusing on. And so I try to allocate only times of my day. And I'm not saying like, I don't think there's like one method that necessarily works, but like for me personally, if I'm going to sit down and do that, I remove any other distractions from any of the other businesses or opportunities and only allocate time to that business during that time of the day. Because, you know, like Static, for example, we are a growing company and it takes a lot of time. I'm running the sales and revenue portion of it, you know, as well as strategy and working with a lot of our clients. And so if I get distracted because I'm thinking about a design of the next shirt drop or, you know, a photo shoot that I want to do, my mind's going to be off here and I'm not going to be able to focus here. And it's received, like people can see through that, especially if I'm trying to like, you know, hey, here's what our services are and we're working through that. But if they can tell I'm distracted.
Yeah.
Because I'm not answering the questions the way I should be, you know. And so I try to, in any of my endeavors, split up my week. And usually just for me, I have to write it down and then say, this is what I'm doing for the week. Now, it doesn't always play out that way, but at least I'm like, I know going into those hours what I'm going to be focused on and what needs to get done.
So I have a saying, dude, I use a Google Calendar religiously. And I tell my wife, if it's not on the calendar, it's not real. And if it's not on the calendar, it's not happening.
Fair enough.
Just because that's the visual representation I can have where I can segment my time for the different tasks, the different businesses, those kind of things, right? The focus bit, that's critical. If you are a young entrepreneur, focus on one task. Focus on one thing. Don't try to run 6 businesses at once. Grow one business until it's a win. And then once that's established and self-sufficient and growing, then you can move on to the next, right?
Yeah. In fact, one of the things and not to interrupt that train of thought, that I've come to realize over the years, because there was at one point where I was trying to do 4 or 5 different things. And, you know, the interesting part is when you're creating opportunities, people see you and what you're doing, and, you know, you start getting around those circles, they start presenting you opportunities. And the thing that nobody tells you, at least in this process, is how to say no to those because you're so excited about them. And you want to be involved with them and you feel honored that they even thought of you to be a part of those projects. But knowing that this is what you're trying to build, like, and this is where the term comes down to, and I haven't fully, again, materialized this into a really good way of explaining it, but anytime I look at them as almost different pots. If I'm focusing on building this, I can only deposit so much into this pot. But if I try to also focus on this, well, I'm technically robbing this pot and put it into this, right? Like anytime I distract, like I'm scrolling through reels, like I'm taking the time and money that I can invest in the business and my efforts, and I'm dumping into this, and which one has a better ROI? Clearly the business does, because consuming social media for me, even though I work in the industry, doesn't truly have an inherent value that pays my bills.
Yeah.
And so it's like that's the thing I think a lot of people need to realize when they're early on in that journey is if you're focusing on a bunch of different things, even though they're all business forward, they're all supposed to be revenue generating, you're robbing one business to pay another business with your time, mental capacity. Like we only have so much we can offer. There's only so many hours in the day and there's only so much willpower and mental capacity that we can actually contribute to these every day. And if you max that out for so long, you're going to burn out and all of them will die.
So you talked about 3 points there. You talked about time, money, and mental capacity. Now, a lot of entrepreneurs starting off, they're not going to have money, but what they do have is time and they have mental capacity. Just to touch on those are investments, right? Your time, I'm a firm believer, your time is the most valuable asset that you have as an individual. I respect and value my time to the point where I am not going to do things half-assed, haphazardly. If it's something worth doing, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. I would recommend to all entrepreneurs that you invest your time, and when you are investing your time into something, you need to be doing it to the best of your ability, to the best of your capacity, and you need to be efficient, right? Don't waste time. Social media is a hard one for me. I have to be on it to grow my business and my organizations, right? Like, I do a lot of that through, one, paid advertising and Facebook presence and posts, two, groups and interacting with people on social media. So that's an aspect of work, but it's also my biggest distractor and time waster.
Yeah.
So being cognizant of that, I think, is a key to success for entrepreneurs. You want a social media presence. You don't want to waste time on social media. And in the mental faculty, there's a drain on your mental faculties while you're on social media as well, right? You only have so much cognitive load and cognitive space available every single day, right? And obviously there's some factors that influence that, your sleep, your diet, whatever, your caffeine intake to some degree. But if you're wasting your cognitive faculty capacity load on things that don't move the needle for your organization, there's no way you're going to find success. So invest your time and invest your mental faculties towards things that are important, that move the organization forward, that actually move the needle for you, that help you earn money, right? Don't waste them on things that are going to be inefficient and ineffective.
Yeah.
Cool. So we've talked about your personal journey. We've talked about your business and how you're, involved in these different worlds. Let's talk about strategy a little bit. The things that will actually move the needle for some of these entrepreneurs that are listening. Every entrepreneur has a little bit of a different journey. And with that, every entrepreneur learns different things. What are some of the lessons that you've learned in your journey that would help an entrepreneur succeed that's just starting out today?
I think we've hit them, at least the majority of them. Focus on one thing, make that your only focus. Dive into it, because the thing is you can't become an expert overnight. It's incremental success. You're going to learn new things as you're growing the business. You're going to, run into new obstacles. So I think definitely focusing on one thing and then sending it. Send it. Because sure, you can come up with a cool product. It hits a trend, you're success overnight for sure. But that's here and gone tomorrow.
Yeah.
And unless you're that smart of a thinker, innovator, and you're catching on to trends that early, I'm sorry, you're not that guy or girl. You're not that person. So focusing on one thing. And then I would say just the other side of it is just continually sit back and realize that you can never not stop learning.
Definitely.
And you have to be doing things that give you that competitive edge. Because at this point, with 8 billion people in the world, like the cool part about what we do is like, yes, are we innovators in this particular industry? Yes. But we're not really reinventing the wheel. We're just repurposing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And applying it into a different application. And so, like, because of that, we just need to focus in on that and then stay with that industry long enough. And it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when, right? One of my favorite stories that I heard is, this guy who, I think Trump talks about it, where he was on a plane with this individual for years and he'd fly first class. And he's like, you're not in a place to fly first class. And he's like, this is the way I remind myself of what I can have. And then, after 8 or just like 10 years, something like that, just the company that he spent all like 8 to 10 years building finally took off. And it was like a major, major success, like hundreds of millions of dollars worth, right? And if you're starting out, seeing that is hard because you're micromanaging the everyday.
Yeah.
And you need to look at the macro and celebrate the small wins, which I'm horrible at doing. So I'm a little hypocritical even in saying that, but celebrate the small wins, realize how far you're coming, but just making sure that if you're putting in the right efforts and you are cognizant of the time that you're putting into the business every day, that it will work out.
Mhm. So you didn't use this phraseology, but you're talking about taking continuous action.
Mm-hmm.
I refer to this as the success formula for entrepreneurs. Continuous action plus continuous learning equals success.
Mm-hmm.
Alex Hormozy wrote a Twitter post the other day, I guess it's X now, that I really liked. He said, take so much action that it would be statistically impossible for you to lose.
I like that.
That's the secret as an entrepreneur. Like if you really boil it down, it's those two things. It's taking continuous action every single day, do what moves the needle. Every single day, do what you need to advance towards your goals. And then never stop learning, finding more ways to be efficient, finding better ways to improve your processes, your systems, right? Systems are what scales an organization. Teams are what builds you to success. So find ways to improve on those things, right? Via learning and action. If you can do those things, I think you win.
100%.
Okay. We've talked about lessons now. What roadblocks or obstacles are you currently facing that you're working to overcome? I like to talk about this question just because there's people out there, there's maybe somebody listening right now that can learn from us. And if you're working through an obstacle or a roadblock, they can say, oh man, it's so good to know that I'm not alone in this. Because there is a little bit of this entrepreneurial, isolation, I call it. Like, just to tell the story, when I started my first company, I guess my first real adult company, back in 2017, I gave up weekends with my friends. I gave up going to parties. I gave up cutting school on Fridays to go snowboarding, things like that. And people kind of made fun of me for it. I lost a lot of friends and relationships just because I wasn't putting anything back into those relationships. I isolated to work and to grow my business. Obviously, there's pros and cons to that, but it's a tough thing as an entrepreneur to recognize that there's other people out there that are going through similar struggles, similar obstacles, that are working to grow in line with what you're trying to do. And, me isolating in my little corner office, trying to grow a business, staying out till 7 p.m. so I can be on the phone talking to Chinese manufacturers, is separate from you growing your photography business and refining your craft. And we don't necessarily see the work that each other are doing, but I'm sure a lot of these obstacles are common for entrepreneurs across niches and genres. So is there anything that you're working through right now that might be beneficial for the listeners?
Where do we want to start? No, honestly, yeah, some of the biggest obstacles we're kind of running into right now is bottlenecks in the business. We immediately, as we solve one problem, another one identifies itself.
Yeah.
And I think it's good to be able to hyper focus on one problem, find it, work through it, and then keep working. And one of the things I really like that you said is bringing in a team of people that can help you work through those problems and, overcome those different obstacles in your business. Because for example, with us, one of our biggest bottlenecks that we run into is we need to come up with idea generation for all of these different types of blue collar companies who, they tailor to different audiences. The narrative that they tell is different. And so being not only keen to what's receptive to what people are looking for from those types of businesses and people and personalities, but also being able to then go out and film and then distribute that efficiently is very difficult because, we're going out, we have production teams, we have people that are on site, and we want to deliver at a quality that makes you stand out from the rest of the competition.
Definitely.
And so, a big bottleneck we have is actually one of the coolest talks I heard recently was from someone I look up to. His name's Andrew Smith, runs the Savory Fund. He says, people, systems, and process. That's how you scale your business. That's what will take you. And you kind of mentioned it,
Yeah, and in that order, I think.
Yeah, 100%. And so we run into the issue of, is this person going to help us take this business to the next level? Do we have the right systems in place to not only help them and support them so that they can do what they do best as efficiently and, at the level we need to, which for us is a very high quality. And then, does our process of that and how we deliver that to the client, work well? And that's honestly like our biggest struggle right now is we'll run into small bottlenecks where, projects get delayed because we might have overworked somebody when they said they could take on that amount of work or those types of things. So it's, I would say those are kind of like our biggest roadblocks when I specifically even talk about static. And it's kind of funny because my partners probably wouldn't even like me mentioning that type of stuff, but I'm like, I feel like it's good to talk about.
Well, it definitely humanizes, you and the company. Like if somebody's only exposure to you is social media and they see all of the awesome content that you produce, right? I mean, you're familiar with it. There's this concept that we get a false sense of reality because of social media, and everyone is experiencing that right now. Our generation, I think we didn't, have social media really as kids. So it was foreign when it hit, and everybody was obviously keen to share the highlights, your stories, your best, events and experiences. And you take pictures of the cool things you're doing, but nobody ever shared the struggles. And it's rare, right? But I think it's important for one, being authentic, and authenticity builds trust. And I've said it before, trust is the de facto currency of the world. So I think it's necessary if you want to stand out, if you want to be successful, if you want to build those relationships like you've been talking about, that's your superpower, man. You have to share the obstacles. You have to share the struggle, right?
Oh, yeah.
Something that I struggle with has been the community and relationship building, which is weird for me because as a leader, I think my superpower is relationship-based leadership. The people that work for me that I lead in the military or in business, I build those relationships. I talk to them. I get to know them. I coach them. I develop them. I help them achieve their dreams because I recognize that one, maybe being a soldier for me in the National Guard is not your lifelong dream. And two, being a call center representative for me isn't necessarily your lifelong dream. But I invest in those relationships and that development. And you know what? It's honestly a little bit of a badge of honor when people can promote or leave my organization, go do something else that they've dreamed of because of the development that they've received while they've been working with us. I really like the concept that you shared about people and systems. Everyone recognizes that systems scale empires, but I don't think that it's possible to really grow an organization without people. So one of my dear friends, his name's Akbar Sheikh, his whole concept is I'm going to do what I do best. I'm going to outsource the rest. And that doesn't necessarily mean you have to outsource to other companies, but it means you could outsource to other people. You could develop or hire, this A-player team that's going to help your organization become more lean or efficient. It's weird to talk about hiring and lean in the same sentence, but they go together. They really do. And people don't always think through that. But if you're inefficient because, like you said, you're overworking somebody, or maybe the individual is overconfident in their capacity. I know that's one of my weaknesses. I always think I can do more. And so I just keep taking on more and more and more. And then I have 20 hours of my day scheduled. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't keep doing this.
Yeah.
So in a way, there is a threshold where hiring people or developing people, investing that time into coaching and developing and mentoring makes your organization more efficient.
Yeah.
So I love the concept of having the right people. I recognize that my successes in business, I've got an MBA. I'm working on my doctorate in business administration, organizational leadership, right? So I have that formal education behind me, but my successes in business weren't because I was good at business or because I was, educated on how to track metrics or do marketing or anything like that. My successes in business all stem from developing unstoppable teams. And I recognize that my teams are what has propelled me to levels of success, both in e-commerce and in the military. I'm a huge advocate for investing into people and the people that you have around you. And that solves a lot of problems. That helps overcome a lot of obstacles. And then when you have the right people in place, the systems are easier to refine because the person closest to the problem is the person who has the most incentive to solve it. So as an entrepreneur or as a business owner, right, you might be a couple steps removed and you can look down at a problem and just dictate a solution, but that's probably not actually the best solution because you're removed from the issue. So I try to put a lot of trust into the people that work for me or that I coach and mentor because they're the ones that are going to be the problem solvers and the needle movers, right?
So can I ask you a question?
Yeah, please.
So I feel like when building a team, especially when you're scaling a company, there's multiple factors that come into play, right? Like we're talking, are they not only a good worker, are they skilled in that labor? Are they going to bring like the value to the table? Because it's hard. Everyone can talk, but the people who can actually do it, like it's hard to find depending on what industry you're in. And then you also deal with the culture side.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have an A+ player who's determined, who's the best at what they do, but could be completely toxic to a culture and completely disassemble a whole team. And obviously I understand that at the minuscule level that I have and from the people I've surrounded myself with. And I find it very interesting because you also bring the military aspect to that. And I feel like that is one of the most intense team building and trust you have to have in an individual.
Yeah.
Because one toxic person who doesn't follow orders and isn't willing to, isn't a team player, like you cannot have them on that. Because that, in some scenarios can mean life or death, right? Like business life or death is fine. Like a business can die and you can still go on the next day. But if you're in a field, and you don't have someone who is, how do I even want to word this? Just like is a negative or plays a negative effect against your team. Like I feel like it's hard. And so how do you work through that? How do you identify it, but then B, build a culture, build a team that is reliant on each other, can communicate with each other. Like, again, there's all these factors that come into play that continue to keep it effective and growing. Because, even us, like, people attach that term to culture and it's hard.
Concept that is very common and prevalent in the military. It was popularized for maybe civilian use by Simon Sinek. My little chart here, if the camera can see it. But you have high performance, you have high trust. Just draw little arrows. Okay. Who do you want to hire? Obviously, you want the high performance, high trust individuals, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there are people out there, just the reality of the situation, who are really high performers, but they're horrible people.
Mm-hmm.
They cheat, they lie, they take advantage of the situation to make the sale, right? Those people will kill your culture. And if they kill your culture, you lose your people, your good people, your strong people, the people that lead the organization, right? So you never, never hire a high performer, low trust individual. Additionally, out of the low trust, low performance people, you probably don't want those, right? The commonality here, though, is the trust. Because I'll take a low performance, high trust individual. You can train someone to do a task. You can train someone to do a job, but you can't coach trustworthiness, especially not when you initially hire someone. So I try to, as a point of emphasis, actually, I hire 100% based on, do I feel that this individual is trustworthy, and are they a good fit for our culture? That's the box that I hire. So a lot of people ask, and actually I just spoke at Akbar Sheik's mastermind last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago now, and I got this room of entrepreneurs, and all of them raised their hands with the exact same question. And they're like, well, how do you hire players? And the truth is, I don't hire A players. That's not what I'm trying to do. If I can, great. But what I hire is high trustworthy players, people that I can hand the keys of the organization over to, and I know will represent us well, that will take care of me, my family, things like that, right? If I hire someone who's super trustworthy, I can coach them up on everything else. If you're bad at, like, for example, the majority of people that I hire are in sales or they're in customer service, right? But I don't want a low trustworthy person to have access to all of our, financial data or customer billing information, things like that. Obviously,
Yeah.
there's a risk there, right? Simultaneously, I don't want to trust somebody with giving my customers and my clients a really good experience if they're not going to be a trustworthy person. So I focus totally on how well they're going to integrate with our organization and the trust level. And there's some ways that I do that are kind of unique to a lot of people. I exclusively hire based on referrals. That blows a lot of minds. And you're like, well, you're going to get a lot of unqualified people. And yeah, I will get unqualified people. And I'm totally okay with that because I can coach them and make them qualified. I can teach them how to do the task, but I can't teach them to be a good person.
Yeah.
Not as easily anyways. So interesting stories. I really do genuinely only hire 100% based off referrals. And even the people that leave my organization to this day, which, 7+ years now of doing this, 100% of people who have left my organization have referred people to come and work for me or to take their place. And that's a huge testament to what we're doing. And I think the reason that happens is because I'm willing to, and my managers are willing to put in the time, effort, and energy to develop and coach those people. It's not just developing and coaching them for the task, though. It's developing and coaching them to be the best version of themselves that they can be. I'm on a mission, a goal perhaps, to achieve self-actualization. And for the people that maybe aren't knowledgeable about what self-actualization is, it's becoming the best version of yourself. For me, that means I have to get a little bit better every day. It's the continuous learning aspect, right? It's the trust and relationship building aspect. But it would be selfish, wrong, entitled perhaps, to do those things for myself and not help my employees on that same journey. So if you come to me and I have work to do that needs to get done, I'm going to hire you, but you have a goal to be a marketer, dude, I'll coach you on marketing all day, right? I'll teach you how to run ads. I'll show you how to build creatives, right? I'm not necessarily the best at that, but I'll get you to my level, and then you can continue to learn from other people and then take that and go and grow and learn and be what you want to be. So that's typically how I approach hiring, right? And then as far as the developing a team to be the A players that you want that are going to move your organization forward, it's really a multi-step process. I start with trust. Trust is the de facto currency of the world, but that means I give a lot of trust to the people that I hire. And I'm enabled to do that through the referrals, right? Because if you refer someone to my organization, I trust you. I know you're not going to refer someone who sucks to me.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to ruin that relationship, right? You want to be known as the person who's made that good connection. And the people coming in subsequently, they want to have a good connection too. They don't want to misrepresent their friend, their family member, whoever referred them to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I can already start with a high level of trust in that situation. I give them that trust. I teach them, the role, and then I let them take the action and I let them take the ownership. And that's the scariest part for a lot of entrepreneurs is how do you give up ownership to someone else for their task, their role, their purpose, right? And for me, it's kind of what I mentioned earlier. I recognize the person closest to the problem is the best equipped to solve the problem. I want to let them do that. And I'll give them, what our non-negotiables are and their left and right limits, what they need to operate within. And then I'm going to trust them to operate. And if there needs to be a correction later, it's a conversation, right? It's, hey, I saw that you were doing this. I would appreciate if you operated more like this, If the KPIs aren't where they need to be, it's again a conversation. It's not a dude, you suck, you're not getting enough phone calls. It's, hey man, I noticed that your outgoing calls 15% lower than everybody else in the office. Let's talk about why that is. And maybe we look at some of the surrounding, situation and nuance that goes into those kind of things. Actually, just to share, I had a employee, he's a relatively new employee in my organization, and he has a lower call volume than everyone else, but he has a higher talk time, like on the phones, higher call average, if that makes sense. Time average of phone calls. So obviously he's just spending more time on the phones talking to the employees. That's not inherently a bad thing, but it means he's being less efficient with how he conveys the information that solves the problems, right? But then that's a situation that I can coach, right? I can coach him how to be more efficient. I can coach him how to overcome objections. That's how I tailor that. So we start with trust. We coach and develop the performance. It's hard as an entrepreneur because you get in your head what your vision is, what right should look like, where you want to go. But are you communicating that efficiently and effectively to the teammates, to the organization, so that they can take the action to actually get you there? A very common problem that I see in entrepreneurs is what right should be, where you want to take the organization, and then you're frustrated that your team isn't getting it there. But the reality is, have you ever actually taught your team what that vision is? So I like to start with a process called command philosophy, right? In the military, a command philosophy is how you as a leader not just want to, but how you're going to lead, how you're going to be perceived as a leader, right? And that's your philosophy of leadership then. I teach civilians and entrepreneurs, business executives, how they can develop their command philosophy. And I base it on 3 pillars. So this is the freebie for everybody here. Your mission statement. It has to be crystal clear. Your mission statement is why you exist as an organization. Once you have that narrowed down and it's clear, concise, and can be replicated and understood by everyone in the organization, you work on your vision statement. Your vision statement is where you're taking the organization, and I like to add in why that matters. And then third is your non-negotiables as an organization. For example, mine is that I'm only going to hire high-trust individuals, and then I'm going to put in the work, the time, the energy to develop the people. But your non-negotiables are your left and right limits. That's what you're going to operate within. That's how you're going to get to that vision statement. And when you have those 3 things, they're those guiding pillars, those supporting structures for you to develop your command philosophy around. How are you as a leader? And people don't always think about that as an entrepreneur. You're a leader. If you have employees, you're a leader. If you're driving an organization, you're a leader. But nobody learns leadership in business school, right? Take those 3 pillars. That's your framework for where the organization is going and how they're going to get there, why it's important. You lead around that. Your leadership philosophy should support those pillars. And then those pillars should support you as a leader. I think when you get those things down, the team development aspect becomes so much easier because everyone understands who you are, what you're trying to be, and where you're trying to take them. And when they understand that, they can actually have buy-in to the process and they can contribute. That was like a fire hose, just going for so
awesome.
Hope it was good.
It was perfect. I mean, you opened my eyes to a few things that I've heard before. Just again, didn't make that like conscious to subconscious connection with. But no, I loved it. I think that's very important. I liked the point you touched on of like having a crystal clear vision of your philosophy, your ideas, and then being able to communicate that, because that is one hard thing I think I've realized in this journey, especially as you're scaling, because you're bringing in people who are there to fulfill a role, who are excited to be a part of it at some level. But again, it's hard to translate exactly what we want and where we see the company going and getting them equally as passionate about it.
Well, and the hard part is, as an entrepreneur, right, you're the most invested in your organization. No one is going to love your business the way you love your business, right? Because nobody has the reward and the benefit that you have as an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. But how do you get them to take ownership of their individual role? How do you get them to own and love and be passionate about what they do? The concept that I teach around that is a concept called disciplined initiative. Simply put, disciplined initiative is the empowerment of individuals to take action at their level to drive the organization forward. It's that ownership piece that I was talking about. So like I have a warehouse fulfillment manager, right? I wholly trust him and expect him to do whatever he has to do to make that warehouse the most efficient, lean, best operating warehouse it can be. And I don't get in the way, right? I think if you can have disciplined initiative, if you can implement that in your organization, you'd be amazed at how far your people can take you. General George S. Patton famously said, "When I want something done, I tell people what to do. I never tell them how to do it, and I let them surprise me with their ingenuity." I try to take that same concept and just implement it. Tell people what needs to get done and let them figure it out. Let them show you how to do it efficiently.
I like that.
And then you supervise and refine, right? If there's something that wasn't good, you can look at it and say, that really wasn't that great, but you can improve upon it. Like we mentioned earlier, there's never been a situation or a business that I've encountered or that I've coached where I haven't been able to see a way to improve it. As long as you sit down, you assess the organization and the systems, there's a way to get better.
100%.
Okay, man, we've covered a lot of stuff. I do want to ask, we talked about value earlier, the importance of giving value. Is there anything that I can do for you to give you some value back?
Ooh, I feel like you just did. No, I mean, honestly, I might call you with a couple questions, but
dude, please do. And I love to see, you're getting into Curated Collective and, your top secret project that's dropping in July, you said?
July, yep.
If you have questions about the e-commerce side of things, really even just the business development and growth side of things, I put my little Shopify award here just so I had something cool as a centerpiece. But obviously that's my background and my passion, and I love to help people who are doing it. So
I appreciate it.
Dude, thanks so much for coming out. Love to have you. I'm sure that the viewers got a ton of helpful information from this. And we'll look forward to doing it again sometime.
I'm excited for the next one. Thanks, man.
Yeah. So cool. We did it.
We did it. Lock it down, brother.
We're getting back to people.
Dude, we are.